Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Trias. Welcome to Reality NSFW. And we're covering today episode 12 of MTV's The Challenge, Double Agents. And oh my God, we got ourselves a security breach here. Unfortunately, Lauren was not able to join tonight, but we got a good backup by new partner in crime for Double Agents. Please welcome Dan Monchel. Dan, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. It was a great episode. How about you, buddy?
Well, I'm doing great. Some great eliminations, some drama that was much needed in this season, coming at an expense of the best person ever in Big T. But we'll discuss that. But Dan, being new on here, I wanted to know from you, how have you been enjoying the season so far?
I thought it's been pretty good. Especially, it's kind of refreshing after the past few years of the challenge. I mean, last season with Total Madness kind of stepped it up, but prior to that, there were a few seasons in a row that they were good, but they just weren't doing it for me. And I feel like this cast, they've brought it a lot more than the past few.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think casting was really good this season overall. Unfortunately, this season it's also going to be better known for many people leaving, not through the creator, not through elimination, but through other means. Fortunately, we lose Nam tonight to his back pain. It had to be what had to happen, but we will discuss that when that point comes in the episode. But we'll start from the beginning, and we go from where we left off. The security breach lights up in the crater, and TJ saying, you can't, nothing's as it seems. And tonight, it's not just going to be one person elimination. It's going to be a double elimination. When you heard that, Dan, what was going through your mind when you just hear him drop, it's a double elimination tonight, folks?
So I actually thought the security breach was going to be a little bit different than what it was. I'm not sure what your thoughts on it were, but I was actually discussing it with one of my other friends that, we text a bunch during the challenge. And our thought was actually that it was going to be Josh and Nani going in, but we thought that it was going to be that because we had a few of those DQs in last week's challenge. So we thought that the DQs weren't going to count and it was going to end up being Josh and Nani, but I definitely wasn't expecting the double elimination, and that it adds to it, because then at that point you're wondering, well, what's going in? Like, you figure that CT is going in, but who else is going in? Are we doing a male elimination, female elimination? So there was a lot up in the air. Kind of what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so one of my speculation when I was talking with my friends that I watched the episode with, last week we were discussing, maybe it could be a double elimination. That did come up just because we saw two, but we thought one of the competitions was going to be Nam versus Corey to make it so that there was only one extra rogue agent instead of two. But we were also speculating we saw Ashley come back on the previous security breach. So we were speculating, if Ashley stayed for that much time before she was going to take her plane ride home, before they gave her the call to come back, we're like, what if Teresa just popped right back up and, okay, she's now Nam's partner. She's back in the game, and then they go back to the elimination. But honestly, from the point of this episode, I was sort of happy that wasn't the case. And it gave us two great matchups. And it gave CT and Big T, but mainly CT, a lot of power in how the elimination setups were. So let's walk through the first part. So he first has the option of who is Devin going to go up against. And he pretty much tells Devin, you pick, I'm not going to go against you. We've been working together. You pick who you want to go down to face you, and we'll pick him. And Devin, who's quote to himself, a spiteful asshole, felt betrayed by Darrell for being the main vote that caused him to go down there. So he says, you know what? Give me Darrell. Why not? I'm playing with house money anyway. What did you think about that decision?
So at first I was a little confused with it. I was like, man, calling out Darrell, like that's a pretty big shot to take. But then when you really start to break it down and think about all the guys that are left and who he could go up against, I mean, I don't see him wanting to go up against Fessy. Kyle seems like he'd do well in that type of elimination if you see what it was. So at that point, I mean, might as well take out your shot, because if you're Devin and you can take out Darrell and Wes in the same season, like, are people going to keep underestimating you as much as what they have been? So I actually really liked it. It obviously made it exciting, and I thought it was the right move. What about yourself?
Yeah, like for me, there was really no wrong choice for Devin to make because all of them were the wrong choice. If you look at it, just like more times than not, like, and you couldn't pick Corey and you couldn't pick Nam in a something that looked like it was going to end up being a puzzle. I would have wanted to pick Corey because God knows Corey can't do a puzzle. Everyone else there, I have pretty good faith in doing a puzzle. So it was sort of like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Do you go against Darrell or do you go against someone with a skull and try to create another skull opening? And, you know.
Yeah, the only thing that made it a little bit disappointing was just with Devin talking so much about how Big Brother sucks. It would have been nice to see him go up against, I guess, either Josh or Fessy, but, it's not the way it worked out tonight.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But it gets us to our second one because we didn't talk about the second most votes gathered became the second compromise agents, and that was Josh and Nani. And you already have people talking about Josh is freaking out. He's not good when he's freaking out or under pressure. He's trying to get himself in that headspace. He's going down. And we all knew one thing going into yesterday's episode, last week's episode, was CT wanted the goof. Give him the goof. And the challenge god / production allowed the goof to be on the table, and CT jumped on it.
Well, and I think it was really set up well if you think back to last week's episode, because towards the end of the episode, you had Josh who was feeling, relieved and relaxed, and it was the best he ever felt because he had this alliance. So I think, starting from last week, they were starting to set up his downfall, and kind of throughout all of Josh's challenge career, you can kind of see that he doesn't do well under pressure. And I just think that doing this, he was just never able to recover from the unexpected.
Yeah, but like you would have to think Josh, this was definitely unexpected. So you can't really blame Josh for not being in the headspace going into tonight. Because if you went just by the standard rules of this season, there was no reason for him or anyone else to truly believe any of them were going down there tonight. Because Devin was the compromise agent. CT's been talking all about how this is the only chance he can get his goal. They're like, nothing to worry about. This throws a little grenade and it blows up in front of everybody, and the person who just happens to be hit is Josh.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that that's kind of the way that it worked out, but I mean, if you're CT, it works out perfect because as you mentioned, he said he wanted the goof. That's who he wanted. And as we've already talked about, that Josh doesn't necessarily do well under pressure, especially when it's unexpected. Everything came up victory for CT. The way that elimination was panning out.
Yep. So let's get to the elimination. So it's a modified version of the Dead Ringer. When we saw it last time with Cam and Ashley, they were just getting rings onto. They were taking the rings and then putting it on a rung on a pole across it while gaining momentum on the big ass podium, as TJ calls it. This time, though, it wasn't just about power and speed, but it was also about mental agility. So the poles were higher and farther away than they were the last time, and on them were puzzle pieces that you would have to yank off. Once you got all 7 puzzle pieces, you would then descend off of the podium and then create this tentagram puzzle, or as Darrell called it, a tangerine puzzle. And that got me.
That was, especially when you could see Darrell as he said it. As soon as he said it, he's like, that's not right. And then it took him a few more seconds to kind of figure out what he missed.
Yeah, it was surprising. Darrell always is good with the one-liners, and just short, sweet statements. Because to me, Darrell comes off as one of the most normal people on the challenge. Like, you have Devin sort of trying to talk trash to him, and the only thing Darrell comments with is like, "Hey, I'm not Josh. All that talking mess will work on him. It just makes me want to whoop your ass more."
Especially when you consider that, Darrell's more of that OG. And I feel like in a lot of those OG seasons, you had a lot more, shit talking, and it was more kind of personal attacks on people throughout the house. And I mean, Darrell rarely blew up back then. So now him being even more mature, like he's not going to let someone like Devin get in his head.
Exactly. So speaking on them, they were the first to go. It was Darrell versus Devin. And what was funny at the beginning is Leroy goes, "Who wants it? Who wants it?" And Devin just yells right back to him, "We obviously both want it, Leroy. Just shut up." But we see this go, and they're pretty neck and neck the entire way. Like Darrell gets his 7 pieces first, but from what we can see through the editing, Devin wasn't too far behind. They each get theirs, they get their momentum, they get their puzzle pieces down. But then it seemed like what stumped both of them was the actual puzzle itself. And with Devin being like, "I'm not going to beat you physically, but I'll beat you mentally," you would come into this thinking a puzzle comp is the one thing that he could potentially beat someone like Darrell in.
Yeah, you kind of assumed that as long as he kept it close, that puzzle would be the ultimate equalizer. And so you figure, hey, Darrell can beat Devin, that's fine. But as long as you give Devin a decent amount of time, I mean, I certainly thought that Devin was going to end up getting it together. And it was kind of shocking to see him kind of just crumble under that pressure there.
Yeah, I think he just got himself in his own head. He was thinking more about his vengeance, thinking more about just like, I'm going against Darrell, and I think less, and I can't speak for him. So if he would ever want to be on, I would glad to have him on. But from our perception, he was thinking too much about that, and then that got into his own head. When you're in your own head with a puzzle, that creates more complications because you need to have absolute focus. And if you're not focusing, you're going to miss something, and you will not complete a puzzle like that. But Darrell figures it out first.
Yeah, I mean, normal to what Darrell is, kind of, as cool as a cucumber. I feel like Devin kind of panicked when things weren't going his way, and Darrell just kind of always took a step back and said, hey, let's just reset and go about this a different way. And eventually, strategy ended up working out.
Yeah, and good for Darrell. Darrell's like, "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to get my gold skull. No one else was going to." So I appreciated Devin, and he does show respect to Devin after the fact. Devin's good about it. He's able to take the lumps to the chin. He understood what happened. He got beat by the better man, and Devin at least respects Darrell that way. And that there you have it for the first elimination.
Yeah, and I mean that was, I think, really, especially because we haven't seen Devin since Final Reckoning. It was a very good comeback season for him. I mean, he was able to take out Wes. He was able to win a few daily eliminations, and he was kind of, to this point, pretty much the narrator of the season. So, I mean, I can't really hate for what he brought this season. It was great.
Yeah, retrospective on him, I think this was, despite him being like him against the world, I still believe this was probably one of his best seasons to date. And that includes his rookie season where he makes it to the final.
The thing that I kind of found a little bit comical as we're going through it is Devin kind of played almost like Johnny Bananas' role this season, which is someone that they've been kind of sworn enemies the last few times they played. But, the past few seasons, everyone's going after Bananas. You had here, everyone's going after Devin, and Devin just trying to play mind games. So as much as they don't like each other, it's kind of interesting to see that they play, pretty similar under the same circumstances.
Oh yeah, and I think that's why there's tension there. Like when Devin comes in, he's known as the manipulator, the strategist of his Are You the One season, and it's like there was already comparisons being made, like, oh, is he the next coming of Johnny, just not as fit? And you could definitely see it, and I feel like that's why their personalities would clash more, because they're probably more alike than they would like to believe. Sort of like what he says about Josh when they both lose their eliminations. But speaking about Josh, this one's gonna be quicker. It was CT versus Josh. CT's like, I know he's the goof. He's clumsy. He's big. He's an oaf, but I can't underestimate him, or I will lose because I underestimate him. So I have to go full throttle. Josh is like, if I can beat CT, then write the check for me because I'm winning this thing. However, I love the quote from Kyle as they're both trying to gain their momentum to get their puzzle pieces. And he's just like, they're both they're heavy men, and they're looking like two big babies in their harness things. And I knew exactly what Kyle was thinking about. I'm like, oh, he's absolutely right.
Mhm. Yeah, it was definitely slow starting for both of them. You could tell them that it was kind of taking them a while to kind of come up with a strategy and get used to it because they almost looked like baby deer just kind of walking around up there. There was a lot of flopping around all over the place.
Oh yeah, and it's like I'm not gonna give any of them shit because like it
Oh no,
looks
absolutely not.
like you would think, oh, it's so easy. You just go like this, you swing, then you do a couple steps, you go this way, but it's a lot harder in practice, and especially when you're bigger men like them, like they're probably the two outside of Fessy, like the two biggest guys, just body type in the house. So it looked awkward, it looked funny, but CT gets all of his 7 pieces. He gets down there. Josh is struggling to get his last 2. He gets up to his 6th puzzle piece, but before he can even get his 7th, CT gets down there, finishes the puzzle. He's done, got his goal.
Yeah, well, that's where you got CT's, master puzzle tip to, when you're doing that type of challenge to make sure that you drop them all in the same area. That way you don't have to run around and collect them afterwards. And he got to the puzzle and we don't know exactly how long it was, can't really tell with the editing, but it seemed like he got that really quickly.
Yeah. And he says he does Tangerine puzzles with his son. So maybe he was just, oh, I've seen this one before. You did this, this, and this. You're done. Easy.
Yeah. And you already got the quote from Anissa that was before the challenge started that said that CT's really good with shapes, which I thought was kind of an odd, compliment to give someone, but hey, it turned out to be exactly right.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see if Josh was able to get down in time because everyone was commenting about how fast he did the slide puzzle a couple episodes ago. It would have been interesting to see put him to task against one of the best puzzle people the challenge has seen in CT. And if he beats him, then, that gives Josh some credit. But unfortunately, Josh loses tonight. We get the ironic, heartbreaking comment from Big T of how happy she is that her partner got a gold skull. Leroy's terrified. Nani's heartbroken that Josh is leaving because Josh was the perfect partner for her. They just had that good connection. He was uplifting to her, and now she doesn't know who she's going to have.
Josh has got to be one of the people that I'm kind of conflicted on, exactly how I feel about him because, he gives you a lot of stuff that's contradiction and a lot of emotion and, it's crying, but you see the way that everyone in the house kind of loves him and is willing to back him up, that it's like, okay, there's something there that we're, as the viewer, not seeing all the time. And I think it's pretty interesting that way.
Yeah. So I will go here. Lauren did give me one comment she wanted me to say, and it was that she was so happy to see Josh lose and that he's gone. I'm only saying her words. It's not my words. I think Josh brings something to the show. Every season he's been on, I never believe he's going to make it to the final. If he really tries hard enough and if the format changes, I could see his style of game getting him to a final. Whether or not he wins it is a different thing, but I do see the value you have in a Josh for any cast of the challenge.
I feel like Josh, if he's going to win, he'd be better suited on one of the team challenges where if he's in with the group, they don't want to get rid of him, because he's good for team morale and bringing people together. And if he doesn't have to necessarily carry the load, I think that's where he could win. But from what we've seen from him from this point, I mean, it's hard to see him winning one in partners or individual, especially his elimination record is not great. It's
one
something
win.
that definitely, it's something that needs to be worked on. I mean, he got smoked by Jordan with one hand in a rope pool. So there's, I don't know if he just needs to be mentally stronger in some of it or what it is, but I do see there being potential there. I just don't think he's kind of pieced it all together yet.
Yeah, if I'm Josh, the one thing I'm really focusing on is balance exercises. Just because the main thing you have everyone talk about him, not about the emotional stuff because that's a given, but you can't really change your personality. However, you can change how you work out for these challenges and train your body. And if everyone's calling you clumsy and a goof, get into a program that allows you to not be as clumsy.
He should also work with how to throw stuff too. That might be helpful down the line.
Well, yeah, but play some sports. We're starting to get slowly out of the pandemic. When things start opening up and you can have sports and activities, sign up for a couple. It could do you some good. I know I will. But we now know that Darrell and CT have their goals. Devin makes a joking comment to Josh saying, "Oh, we have more in common than we thought." And Josh is like, "Fuck you. Fuck you. Don't talk to me right now." And as they're leaving, Josh is being, Josh. And he's like, "I love all you guys. I hope you all do well." And Devin's just like, "Yeah, but remember, Big Brother sucks." And the last thing you hear from them is Josh going, "Am I allowed to punch him in the face now?"
I just hope that their plane seats were next to each other on the way home. Like I just wanted them to, to have to work it out and also record that because I feel like that'd be hilarious.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I see in the comments section that a lot of people are happy that Josh is gone. So good for them. But we go into the commercial with CT going, "This may be my only chance to get a better partner, but I love Big T. She's been so good to me. Like, I would feel so shitty to do this to her." So, like, you're going into that commercial break and you're like, "I don't know." And it was more so I thought he was going to do it, but I was like, the heart in me wanted to see him stick with Big T.
Yeah, especially with a lot of the moments they've had this season where he was really able to uplift her, and they had a lot of great moments this season, but you could tell it was definitely weighing on him on what he wanted to do.
Yeah, so in wrestling terminology, we have this buildup of a face CT. He's the baby face. He's the underdog in this cast because he's not in the Big Brother Alliance. The audience isn't liking that the Big Brother Alliance is in control of everything. CT is trying to shake things up. Heel turn of the season. And CT's like, "Big T, I love you, but I'm taking Cam. I should have picked you at the beginning, but I'm taking him from you, Kyle. Fuck you. He's effing off everybody." And everyone's just like, wow, that's pretty disrespectful to Big T.
Yeah, it was definitely shades of young CT there that kind of came out. And I don't know if it was just because he was so excited, but probably not the best way to play that.
Not at all. I think the adrenaline was pumping. He knew, like, okay, I need the perfect partner. I know she doesn't like me, but I'm taking Cam. She's a beast. Me and her together, we will rock this shit. But by doing that, he betrays his alliance partner, Kyle, in that instance. And Kyle's just like, "Oh, fuck you, man." I needed Cam. I'm the perfect follower. She's the leader. I was just willing to follow her. I was the king. Now I'm nobody.
So if you're CT, what are you doing in that situation? What's your choice?
If I'm CT, I do what he did. I take Cam or Casey. I probably would have ended up taking Casey just because, like, if I was aligned with Kyle and doing that, I'm not aligned with Leroy, and Leroy didn't vote my way. So, and Casey for sure didn't vote my way. So I'm just going to take her. And I would take Casey more because she's the center of the Big Brother Alliance. Mm-hmm. And the Alliance won't want to send her down.
Yeah, I thought it was tough. I mean, I get why you wanted to take Cam, but I also thought that holding on to Big T probably, I saw some positives in that. Obviously, that was kind of pretty much his only alliance was what he had going on with Big T, and he didn't want to rub her the wrong way. And I just kind of assumed that at some point, as females start getting skulls and have to doing swaps, that CT suddenly becomes very appealing because he's a very well overall player and someone you'd want to run the challenge with. So I figured if he would just hold off, he might have been able to have someone else do his dirty work for him and get him switched to a different partner.
I just didn't see that happening with this specific cast. Like, I don't think any of them were eyeing CT just because of how much of an outlier CT was to the dynamics. Like, you see it from Nani talking about it later, and I'll just bring it up now because it's the only time I'm going to mention it, is she's upset that she's losing Josh, but she's thinking, if I can get down there and get my skull, I'm going to take Fessy. And I think that's a horrible move picking Fessy.
Yeah.
Just from if you watched and they had time to watch Total Madness because pandemic, Fessy has not changed his body type or workout routine at all. If this is anything to do with heights and altitude or going up a mountain, Fessy's fucked again.
Yeah, he's not up. Yeah, he's not set up well for that. And on top of that, he seems to think that he's good at puzzles, but I don't see where we've ever been shown that. Like every time I've seen him with a puzzle, outside of it, I don't know if you want to count the very first episode where he got the combination right, but outside of that, every time a puzzle's been put in front of him, it hasn't been pretty. So I don't necessarily why you go that route, but I get he is the biggest guy.
Yeah, like I know he was able to do the math problem in the final last year, but it didn't matter at the end because even though he was one of the first to finish that, he gassed out going up the mountain. Know, it's shades of Zach from Free Agents, where
Minus
he
all the
dies on the
crying.
mountain.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I mean that's the best comparison to it. That's exactly what happened to him. So Fessy's definitely. Now that I think about it, I think maybe that should have been potentially Devin's move, is to go after Fessy, especially with that puzzle. But hey, we kind of already passed that. But
yeah, like I understood it. It was more of a spite thing. He knew he was getting Fessy's vote. He thought there was a chance he could get Darrell to vote with him. So I understand it from his mindset there. But we go through the rest of the picks. So Darrell decides after teasing about it that he's going to stick with Amber. Thank God I don't have to do last initials anymore. There's only one Amber on this show. So Darrell sticks with Amber. Kyle chooses Nany again. Honey, I'm home. They're back together. Nany is not thrilled about it. Corey chooses Gabby, who is now his sixth partner. He has had 40% of the women cast have been his partner.
It's the kiss of death.
Yeah, considering the first 5 are no longer in that game. Don't like your chances, Gabby. And that leaves Nam and Big T paired up together. So what are you thinking about these new teams or reunite of teams?
I mean, I guess I understand why Kyle went Nany, especially because they already worked, well together earlier in the season. Well, I guess I shouldn't say well, but, they worked together. But I think at that point, it makes more sense to go back to what you're familiar at that point, especially when you're Kyle, who just kind of had, bamboozled and had his partner stolen. And then I think the rest of it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense Darrell keeping Amber. I think Corey going for Gabby was probably the right call. So I kind of expected the way that it played out. I don't know. Were you thinking anything differently?
Well, I've just been thinking about this now with Kyle picking Nany, because obviously, like, he left Nany because he felt sort of spited by her for pretty much saying that she didn't want to be his partner and that he didn't have it, even though he's the better player. I think out of those 3, he picked Nany. 1, because of the familiarity there, but 2, I think he believes she's the most likely, if she goes down and gets her skull, to leave him, and then that gives him an opportunity to get someone else.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or she goes down there and loses, which she's also known to do in Elimination.
Yeah, I could see that. But I mean, even still between the others, like, do you feel that confident in either Gabby or Big T in an elimination?
Like, if it's the 3 of them, not so much about elimination, but as a partner, I probably would have picked Gabby before I picked Nany.
I can see that.
Like, I think she's, like, I don't really need to have Nany to be part of the numbers if he keeps that good relationship going with Cam and sort of, like, try to plan with her to be like, hey, if something happens, let's try to get back together because we had a good thing going. But Gabby seems like she's inoffensive. She stays under the radar. She performs decently in the missions usually. So it would have been fine. But, like, Nany's capable too. Like, I feel you couldn't really go wrong either way. Even with Big T, because I love Big T and I would partner Big T every day. Every day.
Well, especially what we've seen the last handful of episodes is that she isn't quite as bad as challenges as what the narration would make you think. She's more than capable, and especially in finals that normally involve swimming, she just showed that she's great at that. She's not well, she is afraid, but she's not afraid to, at least try it anyway. And I think you're getting a lot from her. So, I mean, really between those, those three that were left, you could rank them, but I think they kind of all fall in about the same tier. So I don't think there's, a really bad pick in that scenario.
Yeah, like for me, Big T, sure, she may not be above the average competitor for the female side, but I think what she brings to the table is a lot more important. Is it's her positive energy and like just that full optimism. Just like she's always has this, well, except for this episode, she always has a smile on her face. She's looking at the half glass full instead of the half glass empty. And I feel like for me personally, that's a type of person I could vibe very well with and feed off of that and get that good energy going. And that's a big part of these. Like you can be, even if you're an average competitor, if you have the heart and a good attitude about it, you could go a long way.
Yeah, no, absolutely right.
Yeah, so we get back to the house. We get a little bit of conversation there of Gabby sort of talking with Fessy and some of the other people about how like she's sad to lose Devin because like despite him being a mess in this house, like they got along well. He was a good friend to her, but she's like, well, maybe without this mess, Corey doesn't cause waves. I don't cause waves. Maybe I can be that person that really. I won't get bitten by the curse as well.
Yeah, as soon as he got back to the house, I think it was more just about like, yeah, you had those small other conversations, but it was just, all right, CT, public enemy number one.
Okay, and that gets us to our first argument of the night, and that's CT and Kyle. Kyle's just like pissed that CT betrayed him and wanted Cam. Darrell's like, dude, it's the game. You couldn't expect Cam to not be taken. Get over it. And you sort of have CT and him going back and forth like, oh, you're untrustworthy. Well, that's because you're untrustworthy. I just outplayed you, man. Just take the L. Well, yeah, but you're untrustworthy, man. You're a liar. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. It's going back and forth, sort of saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, there was nothing that either of them was going to say where they're going to be like, oh, my bad, or I was wrong. Like it was bound to keep going in circles until eventually someone walked away.
Yeah. And then we get first bit of Big T's spirit going from positive to very negative and dark because she hates putting trust in people that she shouldn't. And she feels like she was used by CT, manipulated by him. He feigned being her friend. And now that he got what he wanted, he dumped her and put her in the trash essentially to get Cam. What were your thoughts there?
I thought you saw a real human emotion from Big T. And pretty much everything she said was right on point. And you can't help but feel a little bad for her, especially because, I get that it wasn't a romance, but CT and Big T weren't together, but kind of their partnership, like you couldn't help but crack up or smile with a lot of the moments they've had this season. So kind of just felt for her.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of the audience is feeling the same way. Like, do we think CT made the correct move for him and his game? Yes. But we also have been spending all this time investing in their partnership and this chemistry building between those two. Yet just last episode, CT being like proud dad moment with Big T and just like giving her the world of praise and accolades just to see it all ripped away by him and how he behaved. And you see it, I believe it was Cam who said this. It was CT was wrong not for picking Cam, but how he went about picking Cam. And that's what hurt Big T more. And Big T understands me and Cam are the polar opposites. Like she's pretty much like the prototype, what you want in the challenge. And I'm not as much like I'm not as physical, but I'm willing to go and earn my stripes and prove people wrong. And I'm like, that's this Big T. Like I want to hear, like, I know she's downtrodden right now, but she's not afraid to try and fight.
Well, and I think that's why going back to, I would have been more on the side with CT staying with Big T is, hey, give her a chance to go get her skull. Because that way she's either going to go down an elimination and prove herself. And at that point, what more could you really want in a partner? Or if not, she's going to lose and you're getting your new partner anyway.
Exactly. Like I agree with you. Like for me, and it's my heart talking, I think he should have stuck with Big T. but I also understand why he went for Cam. It was a gut reaction of, this is my only opportunity, I believe, where I'm going to be able to switch partners. Cam wanted me. I wanted her, and I've been regretting it ever since. It's been in my mind. I'm going for it, and he does. And that's what happens. That's the challenge for you.
Well, and the one quote that I wrote down is during kind of that whole sequence is it goes to, just Cam, and she says, I don't want to be with anyone who isn't humble. And that just kind of made me laugh because I'm like, are you like, I love Cam. She's great, but like, are you serious? You call yourself killer, you call yourself queen, and you haven't won anything. I guess, not to get on a little bit of a soapbox here, like I love Cam. She's great. But when she says all the time that every season I've been to a final, it drives me nuts because like Vendettas, you didn't make it the whole way through the final. Final Reckoning, you made it as one of 6 teams that were there. That whole season was an absolute joke. And then like World of the Wards, it was 2. Like she didn't even make it to the final part 2. So while I do agree that Cam is great, like she definitely has a really high thought of herself.
Oh, and that's why I stand Cam. Like I love a person, not just a woman, but a person who fully buys into themselves and sees themselves like they prop themselves up. Like I believe I am up here. And because I believe I'm up here, I'm not afraid to back it up if I need to. And so that's why I love about her. And I think that makes her great television because she's unapologetic about who she is. And so I don't mind that as much as I see some people in the fan base like think about it. But everyone's free to their opinion. For me, I think Cam's like, it is funny with her saying you got to be humble when that's how she talks about herself. But I get it coming from that too, because it's her trying to think, because she is a smart woman. And it's like, you're looking at the situation like, this is a situation where you need to be humble. And we don't get to see everything. And you're going to see Cam in the show. What they choose to edit is her up at 100%. We don't see the 99% of the other time where maybe she's very chill, very relaxed. And it's just when it's competition time or strategy time, she amps it up.
Well, yeah. And to her credit, like, she doesn't have the win and maybe her finals, obviously have never gone well. She is probably, I don't know, maybe along with like Jenny West, who's completed in a couple, probably 1A, 1B, and the last female you'd like to see in an elimination. Like she doesn't lose down there. So all props to her for that.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. And so we go from there to a 3-part series, technically 4. But first part of the Nam back segment. Nam's talking about his back. It feels like explosions on his nerves. And we're getting some of the challenge people getting we pan away to them and they're talking about, the challenge isn't a place for you to heal and get better. Like you need to go home. That's the only place because it's only going to be rest. For back injuries, rest is majorly what it takes for you to heal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think everyone was telling him the right advice that like, hey, the challenge house is not the place to do this. But I think also, when you have Darrell and Kyle and be like, hey, I really don't want to go against you in elimination anyway. So you really should, think about taking care of yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's twofold. And I do believe they were being genuine with wanting, because I think behind the scenes and behind the cameras, I don't think Nam really had a bad relationship with anyone outside maybe just the working relationship with Lolo. But, safety always first. You have to take care of your body. You only got one. But that's where we leave off of him because the challenge gave them a day off. Challenge, like, we almost never see this. They give them a day off and they're like, oh, we're going to bring you to the hot springs. You're going to have some time, chill. Cam and Leroy get some one-on-one PDA time. They're excited to just be with each other. Leroy comments about how Cam wants Leroy to win more than she wants to win it herself. And I can see that. Like, if she can win, she'll be happy. But she also very much wants to see Leroy get his win as he goes off into the sunset moment for his time on the challenge.
I mean, and let's be serious, who deep down wouldn't love to see Leroy win? Everything that he's been through, his first few seasons, he was so close. He's had some bad breaks with injuries and partners, and it's just, I think everybody would be happy with the Leroy win.
I know I
So I
will.
get that.
Like,
Yeah.
ever since his rookie season, I was a big fan of Leroy. It helps that I'm also a Bananas fan, and him and Bananas were always tight. But I always loved Leroy, and I actually loved him more on the seasons where Bananas hasn't been on, because we get to see more out of what Leroy brings to the table. And he's very likable. He's personable. He's above average in challenges. He's improved in the water, which was his weakest part of his game. Like, I would love to get to the end of the season and see Leroy as the winner. For at least for the guys' side, depending on how they do it.
Yeah, and I mean, I completely agree with you. It's when Bananas isn't there, you can see Leroy making these other relationships. And when he's able to actually do that, it almost always works out well for him. Obviously not winning, but I feel like he's able to always better himself, because Leroy is one of the few people on the challenge that you don't hear anyone say anything bad about. It's all, he's the greatest guy ever.
Exactly. And he's done 12 or 14 seasons, something along those lines. If you've done that many seasons and there's barely anyone who says a bad word about you, you're doing something right here. Especially if you're not creating the drama and the challenge is like, oh, we want to bring him back. We want to bring him back, even though he's not bringing the drama at all. We love him so much. We want to bring him on, and the fans love him. It's just like, I'm going to miss him when he's gone. Hopefully it's not a gone forever. Maybe we get him on an OG season. If that continues off of that first season, I'm hopeful that this isn't the last time we'll see Leroy.
Hey, give him a few seasons off, and then, give him another call. See where he's at.
Yeah, exactly. See how his barbershop's doing, if he can take some time off and come back for another one. But let's get back to the hot springs, because we have CT's first attempt at massaging the relationship with Big T and mending the fences by, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll get her a drink, get her some champagne. That will get her to like me again.
Oh, that's such a bad idea, because as you could see, everyone saw through it, especially as he's sitting there, this cheeky look and his sunglasses on. It's just like, this isn't the way to go about it.
Yeah. And then we also get Corey talking with Big T briefly about, like, I know what happened, but don't let this hurt your game. You're in a similar position as me. Like, find your way to get through this. You're better. You are a great person. You deserve to be here. Let's do our thing. Let's go out there, and you're going to prove yourself and get your skull. I like that from Corey.
Yeah, I thought it was a good moment from Corey, especially as, the past few seasons, you're kind of seeing like the Corey rehab his image. And so it's nice to kind of see him have more of these personal moments. And plus, he's absolutely right. I mean, at this point, we still don't know the extent to what Nam's back is. And if Nam, still would be healthy, like he's a beast.
Yeah, and I think his temperament is great for Big T. And I think he would be a good calming presence for her, especially in this time. But speaking about Nam, we get back from the hot spring. His back's still killing him. And he finally is convinced by everyone, let's get my back checked. He goes to the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, if you're having that much pain with it, you have to go check it out, because I don't know. I think you either need to go and find out that, hey, it's not as bad. Maybe I can pull through and keep going. But if not, the last thing you'd want to do is go through another challenge and just end up tweaking it even worse.
Exactly. You have to think about yourself first beyond the game. If you're good, they will find a way to bring you back in a future season. And I think despite him sort of being shy and not giving so much on the camera, I feel there's enough people who like him that he could come back on a future season.
Yeah, he's someone that seems to be really liked in the house. He's spoken highly of. And I get, kind of with his English not always being the greatest, he can't give these very long confessionals, but I mean, some of his, one-liners where maybe he's trying to say it that way, maybe he's not, they still crack me up.
Oh, yeah. The broken English of that stuff is always hilarious. But what wasn't hilarious was this next segment, and it was the CT Big T fight.
When it started out, I thought it was going to work, and then it just absolute train wreck.
Yeah, so CT's like, okay, let me make a fire. We'll get some s'mores. We'll get some blankets. We'll get next to each other. I'll let her vent out to me her frustrations. I'll apologize. We'll move on. So it starts like that. He's telling her to vent. She's venting. She's like, you brought, like, CT, you brought the best part out of me. Like, you were what was making me a better player. And I wasn't doing this for me because I was scared doing all these missions, but I was doing it for you. And then I trusted you. I followed you as a friend. And then the way that you behaved down in that crater, I shouldn't be talked to like that. You went, like, that broke my trust. Like, you lied to me. And then CT, I guess, gets an urge of like, oh, by her saying I'm lying, she's talking about my character. And then it became more about a character assassination. And then Big T's realizing I'm not even part of this conversation anymore. This is a CT monologue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get me wrong. I love CT. I love what he brings to a lot of these challenges. But this is where he just kind of needed to sit there and shut up and just let her vent. Let her get everything off her chest, and then maybe you could have potentially mended that fence. But if you're going to keep jumping on her and getting all defensive and not letting her speak, like, come on, that's never going to go well.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, it's just like, this is the burying CT moment, because it's just like, he's using every like cheesy breakup line that you hear in a movie of a bad couple with the deadbeat boyfriend who's like, it wasn't me, it wasn't you, it was me. I'm not even apologizing about the game. I'm apologizing because I broke your heart. Oh, I'm wrong about that. My bad. And then he's like, the part that really turned it for me and turned sour on the outlook of what CT was trying to do was when he goes, you're just not ready for the final. And then goes, do you want to tell my son why I don't win $1 million? And I'm like, dude, F off about talking about your children. Like, that's uncalled for. It's unwarranted. Like, yes, you're there to support your family, but guess what? Not everyone has kids. So that's on you that you have kids.
Well, and especially when everyone knows that of that cast there, he's probably making the most per week, with MTV's paying him to get there. He's already won 3 challenges. Like, come on, CT. Like, that's just not a good look. I think that was, his Hail Mary effort at the end. And it was just, I don't think he realized that it's only making you look worse.
Yeah, and it sort of goes with what we were talking about before. Like, and CT recognizes it. Like, Big T was the only person there for me. And now with Big T against him, he literally has nobody in this house. It's just him.
Yeah, it's definitely not a good situation for him, but like, is what I mean, I have wrote down here that it's a number of different people that saying, that it's not a good look for CT, or he's public enemy number 1. And I think this will make it harder for future seasons. But at this point, with there only being 6 guys left in the game, once Nam eventually goes, like, who's really going to go after CT? So he, despite being public enemy number 1, he may be able to make it through this season, but I think it definitely paints a bad target on his back for any future seasons if he chooses to come back.
Yeah, like, how I see it is, if there's another guy's elimination, I think they will try to throw him back down, because they're all, even though they should be throwing Darrell down there, 4-time champion, but they're like, CT, the oracle of CT, the legend of CT, we have to put him down there and then hope that Corey beats him in elimination. Because if it's up to Corey, I think he would probably want Kyle, I guess, out of that group, even though Kyle's no slouch in elimination. So I don't even know who you pick out of that 5-headed dragon of gold skulls.
The only thing that I don't know if would put pause to it is maybe they have a better idea on the show, but it seems like we always don't know if it's going to be a male or a female elimination. And people like Leroy and that have been working with them all game, that are they going to take that shot and it end up being wrong, and then Cam's down there fighting for her life.
Yeah, exactly. But ending this conversation, Big T tells him actions speak louder than words and leaves it. And Big T says she will hold a grudge on CT forever.
I believe her too.
I take her for her word. Maybe they'll mend fences in the future, but at this very moment, I totally am in Big T's corner. She's in the right in this situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So who else returns? Nam returns, and he says he gets this big ass needle injection into his back to help with his back. He's gonna sleep it off and see how he feels the next day. Then we get into the morning, and we get a conversation with Leroy and Casey talking about we're solid, right? Like we're good. Like, and we even have Casey talking about it's so weird. We're a unique relationship where we barely talk to each other, but we can say so much with very few words. We just have this really good chemistry, and they both are like, we need to keep this duo together at all costs.
Yeah, Casey, she's kind of hard to put, my finger on because it's you don't hear a lot from her. It seems like a lot of the times the confessionals that they're giving her are where she's explaining what's going on in a challenge or how it's going to work. But from everything that you hear and see, like she's really solid and nothing more that you'd really want in a partner.
Yeah, like I would love to work with someone like Casey because she's not going to bring drama. If I'm tight with her to start with, I don't have to worry about her potentially leaving me for someone else as
Mhm.
long as I show I bring something to the table. And I just think she's a good ally member. She's a good partner. She's very well rounded across the board with all the competitions. So it's like she's a good prototype of like this is the stereotypical person you would want as a partner.
Yeah, and I think she does a really good job of keeping specifically when it was Josh and Fessy kind of reeled in from not letting him do something too stupid.
Exactly. But speaking on that, they're doing their thing and everyone's starting to notice usually the missions are in the morning. The lights go off, challenge activated, morning comes and goes, nothing happens. Lunch comes and goes, nothing happens. Afternoon comes and goes, nothing happens. And it's starting to get into nighttime. And suddenly, lights go on, it's challenge activated time, and everyone's like, how did we not see this coming?
Yeah, it was. I mean, from everything that I understand, they're kind of on a schedule, so they should be expecting it coming. But I mean, I guess that hey, they just got to go to the Springs for a day, so maybe they're given a few off days in a row.
Yeah, exactly. So they get there, and it's this dark, dank warehouse, and you have TJ in there with his pea coat on. He's ready, but he has some information to go first. First order of business. Nam, you hurt your back, went to the hospital, and word is he is medically unfit to continue and has to leave the game. And hopefully we will see you in the future.
Yeah, that's definitely it's a tough break for him, but I mean, from as much times as they kept showing his back, like he kind of just assumed that it was eventually coming.
Exactly. I was comparing it offline when it was commercial time. My friends were saying like, oh, well, do you think he's going to go or do you think he's going to stay? I'm like, well, normally in older seasons, if you came back from the hospital, then it was them saying you're good to go. But last season when Big T got stitches on her foot, on her big toe, she had to leave, even though they let her come back, sleep it off, and then went to the mission and left. So they sort of repeated that pattern of he did all that, he gets back just for them to say, dude, you're unfit. You need to go. He does give him a hopefully we'll see you in the future. He didn't say definitely. So
Yeah, you could see him kind of. I could see Nam's list kind of being on their large list when they're have an idea for this is the cast that we want
yeah.
for this season, and maybe it's just who else can we get and depends on availability and what themes they're going for. So I hope we see him again, especially because I'd love to see him in an elimination. Like I think he would do very well, but I guess at this point, we're kind of just left wondering.
Like I think he would have done great in this particular elimination, especially with his background as an engineer. Like those type of puzzles would go great with an engineer's mind. And so it's a shame. I hope we do get to see him just purely for I want to see him actually compete at 100%. maybe by himself or with a different partner that wasn't Lolo. I just want to see what it could have been. But it makes, unfortunately, Big T a rogue agent, so she can't compete. And what everyone's assuming is one of the last challenges for people to earn their gold skulls.
Yeah, that's got to be rough because, if you're Big T, you go through this whole, whirlwind of emotion. You're happy CT wins, then you're upset with him, how he treats you, as everything that we discussed. And you're thinking that, hey, maybe I have one, possibly two chances to maybe get a gold skull, and to just know that it's off the table right off the bat, that definitely puts her in not the greatest situation.
Not at all. And that gets us to, we're now going to discuss the challenge. And the mission is Mission Survive the Night. Each team will be locked together in a cell and locked in the cell. And throughout the night, they're going to have to endure torturous conditions and do various tasks and you must complete those tasks in order to escape your cell. So the first person to endure all the torture and escape will become double agents.
Yeah, I don't know exactly, we didn't get to see too much of what's going on. It kind of just stopped where, their hands were getting locked in, but whatever it is, it looks terrifying.
Yeah, you have these weird sirens going on and off. You have the lights flashing on and off, and you do see in the next on, it looks like one of the things they have to do is drink something very nasty. So they're bringing the gross food challenge type stuff in. So I think it's just going to be a bunch of those things where it's like getting people to puke, doing things that are disgusting, putting your hands or your face into stuff that's disgusting, and having to do all these other things in order to earn keys or whatever to unshackle yourself and unlock yourself out of the cell. And it sounds like you have to complete everything in there in order to escape. Like you can't fail any of them while going through this like mental terror of whatever they're doing and or really messing with your mind with all the other stuff happening around you.
Yeah, I think this definitely, whoever wins this is going to be, I think it's going to be a great team, and they put themselves in a good spot moving forward, because I think this is really going to test communication more than anything. I mean, yeah, it's going to suck if you have to do any of the gross eating or anything like that, but I think it comes down to communication and how well they work together.
Yeah, and really that wraps up this episode. But if we had do you have any crazy predictions on what could happen next episode?
I don't know if I have any crazy prediction. I'd love to see some random team win it to, spice up the elimination some. But with what we've seen from just the very little of the challenge that's going on, it's kind of hard to make a prediction.
Okay, well, I'm going to stamp my prediction because I've been on the money these last few weeks. If I've said it on the podcast or not, I've said it at some point. The last few weeks, I've said Lolo was going to quit. Nam was going to get removed for his back. He was either going to get removed or get hurt to the point where they would have to stop a challenge to get him back. This, I feel like they put a 10-second segment about Leroy and Casey wanting to be partners to the end for a reason. So my prediction is something's going to happen. If it's this episode or next episode, they are going to get split up one way or the other.
I could see that happening. I mean, especially if if it's a male's picking another female partner. I mean, I think Casey's got to be, if you're not taking Cam, because for whatever reason, maybe they win and they're safe, I think Casey's the next person you're taking.
Exactly. Or you take Leroy as a partner, as a guy, depending on if what girl wins the gold skull. You don't know. But with that, that wraps up our coverage tonight of episode 12 of MTV's The Challenge Double Agents. If you liked what you watched tonight, please click that thumbs up, click the subscribe button, and click that bell for notifications. That allows you to know whenever Reality NSFW is putting out new content, and you can watch live and comment along with the chat. And if you want to be more involved, become a patron for Reality NSFW, where you can join the secret Facebook page with fellow patrons. It's a very good community. They provide patron-only content, including Q&As, where they have us as patrons on as co-hosts that bring in questions and create conversation with the hosts of Reality NSFW and Johnny, Zach, Matt, and Karen. They're also doing rewinds of Survivor Africa with Professor Tim Wilson from from the UK's The Circle. And they're also covering Australian Survivor as we wait for hopefully a return of US Survivor in the fall. So tune in tomorrow night as there's going to be more coverage on both the challenge and our new BB Canada podcast with Brent Walgamot. We have our experts show for the challenge with Zach and Johnny. But until next time, we're out.